Illinois House back at it today after the Senate passed a budget late Sunday, and it's the most expensive state budget for Illinois taxpayers, increasing taxes by about $1 billion, and it includes $900 million in taxpayer funds for non-citizen migrants. We still don't have the deal finalized, though. Expecting that to happen throughout this week. So welcome back. It is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and head over to thecentersquare.com. It's where I find myself full-time covering state government, where you can see all the stories you need to know about, including the legislature staying late to pass a budget. They were scheduled to adjourn Friday. And that didn't happen. They went ahead and carried through on Saturday, thinking that a budget deal would come together. Again, a budget deal was proposed, but it had to make it through the General Assembly in the proper fashion. And the Senate stayed late into Sunday after the House sent their members home for the weekend. So they went home for the holiday, but the Illinois House expected back to pass a state spending plan. It's the largest state spending plan in state history. And let's just take a look at some of the conversation there was on the Senate floor when this thing passed late Sunday. So they advanced the largest spending plan in state history to the Illinois House. And you'll see this article at thecentersquare.com. Illinois taxpayers still waiting on the state legislature to complete a $53 billion spending plan for the next fiscal year, the largest in state history. Without a spending plan advancing, the House adjourned late Saturday for the holiday weekend. House Speaker Chris Welch on Saturday said the House and Senate are very close to an agreement on a final budget. But procedurally, the earliest an agreement could pass both chambers is next week. That's this week, to let members and staff rest and spend time with family. We're adjourning for the holiday weekend, and we'll return to complete this work, and they return today. So the Illinois House is in session. But the Senate, they stayed in the Capitol all throughout the weekend. They were there on Saturday late, and then they were there on Sunday. Senators discussed around $1 billion in new tax hikes to cover the cost of increased spending, sponsored by Democrats. Yet State Senator Chapin Rose say the majority party cannot stop overspending, noting that since Governor J.B. Pritzker's taken office, spending has gone up $13 billion under his watch. And if you look at some of the historical data of state budgets, in fiscal year 2019, the state spent around $36.4 billion in state taxpayer funds. The proposed plan for the fiscal year that begins July 1st, more than $53 billion. Considering total taxpayer spending, and this is what's interesting, I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize this, $53 billion is just going to be from state taxpayer funds. But the state of Illinois, as all states do, they get a bunch of money from the federal government, from federal taxpayers. And when you look at those numbers, you can see just how much Illinois ultimately costs taxpayers. So the proposed plan, considering total taxpayer spending compared to 2019, when you included the federal funds with the $36.4 billion in 2019 of state funds, add in federal funds, it was a total of $71.8 billion for Illinois. For fiscal year 25, the total spending, including those federal tax dollars, $124.6 billion. So you're essentially doubling almost in total taxpayer spending, not just state dollars, but including federal dollars, on the state of Illinois. It's a lot of money. Rose said that now that the state's spending this much, they're forced to raise taxes on people in Illinois. And what are they paying for? They're paying for non-citizen migrants to come here. Now, among the spending is nearly $1 billion of taxpayer funds for non-citizen migrants. Around $629 million will be for non-citizen health care. $182 million will be for services directly for migrants, and $160 million for welcoming centers. And you calculate all that up, and it's well over $900 million. Now, to pay for that, there's about $1 billion in tax increases, including $526 million by capping business-led operating losses, $200 million for a tiered sports betting company tax, And there was a plan to legalize ground sparklers and tax those at an additional 3% on top of the 6.25% sales tax, but apparently that was removed from the final plan. So no ground sparklers for the 4th of July holiday. The revenue plan also includes a slew of tax incentives, including tax incentives to hire local journalists. This is interesting and I think worth more debate, but it ultimately is advancing to allow for local media outlets to get a $15,000 tax credit for hiring local journalists to cover local governments. And if it's a new position, they could get $10,000 in a tax credit. But some critics say that this should not be happening. Government shouldn't define what journalism is, let alone journalists who are supposed to be kind of an adversarial relationship with government shouldn't be getting government subsidies to this degree. But regardless, that measure is advancing. Another tax incentive that was in there to essentially allow for the hiring of ex-felons. But they're renaming ex-felons in this to returning citizens, I think it is. I'll have to double check what the actual language in there is, but for the current fiscal year, I think it's like $1,500 tax credit, and then in the next calendar year, it would be upwards to $7,500 in a tax credit for hiring ex-felons. But there's also tax incentives for the REV program, the Reimagining Energy and Vehicles, the EDGE tax credit program, but there was no discussion on restoring the Invest in Kids school choice scholarship program. So that's all part of the package as well. On the spending side, a bonding authority bill that's separate from the budget also raised red flags. One thing in particular that Senator Rose saw was that it increases spending by about $700 million for capital projects. That's in addition to what's in the bonding authority, and $900 million for the Illinois Department of Corrections to demolish the Stateville and Logan correctional facilities, as well as $500 million for the governor's quantum computing initiative. Other things as part of the budgets, you've got the budget implementation bill. And really what that is, the budget's the line item. The BIMP, the budget implementation bill, is kind of the enabling language that allows for funds to be shifted here and there, but that acts as a companion measure to the line item budget, with various different transfers and tax incentives spelled out in there. But it also gives the Pritzker administration the ability to shift up to 4% of budgeted spending within an agency on things like personnel services, travel, late interest penalties, lump sum operations, among other things. So again, just an overview of some of what the budget's looking like when you get to the details here. But with nearly $1 billion in tax increases, you've got over $900 million in funds that are going to be set up for the non-citizen migrants, and all of this coming together as they prepare to get it across the finish line, with the House returning today to the state capitol. So we'll do what we can to cover that for you. And again, go to thecentersquare.com, thecentersquare.com, where you can keep updated on the very latest of what's going on at the Illinois State House. All right, so check that out. It is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned. We'll touch base on more of what happens here in Illinois state government. Appreciate you guys.